is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is new stuff from the band The Watchers. The name of the album is The Black Abyss. The name of that song was Buzzard. And on the line right now is the, do I say the leader of The Watchers? It is Tim Narducci. Tim, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Chris?
Excellent, man. Am I right in calling you the leader, or are you just one of the pack? I haven't figured out if your band is a pack or one guy with other guys.
I try to throw some vision out, and we all kind of collectively, we all agree upon it and do our thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a little bit of a democracy, I would say. I'm not the dictator, but yeah, it's a cool band, man. We're playing with a bunch of great dudes, and so.
Excellent, man. Well, dude, let's talk about Black Abyss for a little bit here, man. Such a great record, man. And I'm not just kissing your ass to kiss your ass, because as you know, by knowing me a little bit, I would tell you if it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Good. But, dude, start to finish, 8 absolutely killer songs, great production, great tunes. And this is outsider looking in, and you could tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it really seems like you guys took your time to make sure that everything was right on it, from the imagery to the songs to the production to everything.
Yeah, we were going to try and put the record out. It was like I was aiming for last September, believe it or not. And we went on tour. We went and we did that run. I think you remember last summer.
Sure.
We were supposed to play Ohio, but that didn't end up happening. We were going to try and have it done before we left, and then we ended up making contact with Max Norman, and he actually replied to us. So that was kind of weird.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was a total long shot. So we can get into that if you want, but
sure.
The long and the short of it, we got home and we kind of put the brakes on to say, hey, let's just slow it down, take a little more time. And yeah, you're right, man. I mean, I think we did spend more time in that aspect to make sure everything was complete, and I think more so lyrically on my end.
Okay.
The writing process for the record was pretty cool. I mean, Jeremy and I would get together like once a week. I would drive out to Alameda, hang out with him for a day, and come home with a song, So we had the songs pretty quick, believe it or not. And then we would get into the room and bust them out with the rest of the guys and make some arrangement changes and things like that. But, we spent some time, but, ultimately we put that record out 15 months after we did Sabbath Highway.
Okay.
After that was released. So that was kind of the goal, is to be prolific,
sure,
too, and not wait too long.
Right.
And that's also the idea with the next record, is that we're probably going to start that process pretty soon.
Okay.
The writing process.
Excellent.
Yeah. Keep the ball rolling, man.
Right. No, and you know what? Yeah. In this genre of music that you're in, that I'll say stoner rock, stoner metal, retro, whatever we're calling this these days. That kind of is the methodology that you have to do, because there's so much of it that gets thrown, out there quickly now, that if you don't keep producing new music, then you kind of fall by the wayside. No?
Yeah, completely. You got to think back in the 70s when bands would, put a record out every 9 months to a year, and they would tour behind it too. I mean, those guys worked crazy, and I think that model's perfect.
Sure.
Build the band name up, keep people's attention, keep it interesting, and stay on the radar.
No doubt, man. Now, one of the things, Tim, that, and I've said this to you before, and I actually said at the beginning of this interview, is about the production. And I know you worked with Max Norman, and we will talk about that a little bit, but I want to kind of look at the overall scene maybe in the last 15 years or so compared to now. It seemed like, and maybe even longer than that, if you really go back to the early Caius stuff and stuff like that, it seems like those bands early, the introductory bands to this style, I guess, did not worry so much about production as much as having songs. And I personally, while I love Caius to death, I can't really listen to it a lot because the production was bad. And it just seems like now it's just gotten so much to where the production has been able to meet the sound without taking away from it. And I don't know, do you see that, as somebody that's in this world, or do you think I'm just like picky?
No, I think what it is technology is advanced so much from back then. I'm sure they did that stuff. I would guess they did that stuff on analog tape.
Sure.
And you're limited. I mean, I love tape. I love recording to tape, but it has its limitations. So, yeah, you get into the 15 years later, 16, 18 years later from when that stuff, dropped, almost 20 years, but,
right.
Or more. It's way easier. It's way easier, to get a better sounding record. And, production's nice. I mean, I think there has to be kind of you can go really over the top with stuff and
Sure.
overdo it. And there's a lot of records that are made that way that kind of, they offend me a little as a producer,
Right.
because, you're taking away from, I just don't like it when a record's made and it becomes the producers, the engineers chopping up everything, and
Sure.
it just, the humanity gets lost.
Right.
I think you got to try and preserve that like a nice photograph, and put the right touches on it, and not smother it to death with technology.
Sure. Now,
And go ahead.
How do you get that when you're working with somebody like Max Norman? I mean, I have to imagine, when you work with somebody with that resume, I mean, if nothing else, every great Megadeth record came out of Max Norman's, hands. And to go from that guy and say, no, that's not how we want this to sound, or we don't want this. I have to imagine that's an incredibly hard thing to actually step in on somebody with that resume and say, nope, we're going to do it our way, not your way.
Wow. Well, it was very interesting because my manager reached out to Max and made the whole connection,
Sure.
So I get this phone call from, New York area code. And I'm just like, oh God, that's Max on the phone,
Right.
He wanted to talk to me, and it was, I'm a fan, dude. I mean, we grew up with, I remember when Blizzard of Oz came out. I remember when Diary of a Madman came out.
Right.
I mean, I bought those records as a kid,
Sure.
and to have this guy ringing me up, and I'm just like, it was like fanboy freak out, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to this dude. But, just a humble, great human being. Super, super, super cool to work with, I had to kind of test the waters a little bit with my dialogue with him, because we went from a phone call to texting when it got into the mixing process, right?
Okay.
So, you know how texts can get kind of, they don't come across. You're
Sure.
trying to say something and they come off a different way. So there were a couple instances where I was like, okay, I didn't mean it that way. And then, kind of cleared the air a little bit, and but he was open to every suggestion that I threw out to him. And the biggest I think go-to for us was those first two Ozzy records. They're still raw, but they have that extra thing to them,
Mm-hmm.
So we used that as a model, for a record. So it was like, hey, the guitar solo isn't loud enough. It needs to be like Over the Mountain.
Right.
Turn it up, Flying High Again. There was all these references I could just go to, and he would, oh yeah, okay, that's that. So it was actually pretty easy. Once we established, I think the hardest thing was the drum sound to, you can get into that 80s reverb stuff with the snare drums, and it gets ridiculous, and,
Sure.
and that stuff's a turn off to me. So we found a sweet spot, and it worked, and played around with probably 3 different sounds on that record,
Right.
for overall mixes. But dude, I mean, once we got it locked, it was great. It was easy.
Sure.
I mean, really it was a really easy process.
When you first started with him, did you find that his ear was in tune with your ear, or did you find that you had to adjust with him, or him to you, or was it somewhere in the middle of that?
Well, I knew we were going to get, I mix too, so it's like everybody paints differently. Everybody, sings a little different. So we all kind of have our own interpretation of how things are. But I knew going into it that I knew that Max was going to do his thing. That's why we hired him. And you have to let go a little bit and go, okay, well, this is what he does. So yeah, that production is pretty big on that record. I mean, if you compare that to Sabbath Highway,
sure.
I mix Sabbath Highway. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
They're different.
Sure.
But that's what we wanted. We wanted to go for that, that thing that he does, and just kind of fine tune a little bit. More of anything, it was just pulling reverb off of stuff.
Right.
And just kind of finding the sweet spot with that stuff, and then the rest of it was a piece of cake. But again, amazing dude. Just absolutely killed it with his production, and it's a very big, nice sounding record. That's in my opinion. I don't think that it's overproduced at all.
No, not at all.
Which was, so it's still got that raw element, and it's just really fat.
Sure.
Really fat. We're stoked, man.
It also sounds like you guys really developed as a band, and I'll point to specific songs like Starfire. I listen to that, or I listen to Suffer Fool, stuff like that, and there's a growth that is not on Sabbath Highway, and that's not to say Sabbath Highway was bad. I liked it, but I mean, there's just, you sound a little bit more mature as a vocalist to those songs, and the guitars are just a little bit, I don't want to say more or less, but they fit just a little bit better. And I know I'm doing a terrible job describing it, but I know what you mean. It feels more mature.
You know what it is, Chris, is that Sabbath Highway, we probably got in a room maybe 6 or 7 times before we recorded that.
Okay.
So we weren't really a gelled band. That was more like a studio band if you look at it.
Sure.
And then after that, we were able to go on the road and gel, see what works live. But that's the biggest difference. That's what you're hearing, is the gelling of the band. The being in the band for 10, 12-hour drives, 20-hour drives. Bonding and getting to know, dude, like, hey, you get along, this is my brother, and I think that comes through in the music.
Sure.
At that point, I think that that time spent on the stage and touring and stuff is all the difference in the world, and I think that's what shows in that record.
Sure.
I think that's what came through.
Does this feel like more of a complete band for you than SpiralArms did? Because I'm obviously SpiralArms went down in kind of an ugly way between you and other former members of your band. Does this feel like it's a little more complete and a little less likely to find that splinter spot?
Yeah, well, I think what it is, it's your it's your personnel, man. You work with people that are about working in the band's interest, or they're working in their own personal interest.
Right.
So that's the difference. SpiralArms had we were banned for 12 years, 13 years,
mm-hmm.
and there was just a lot of interruption with that band.
Sure.
I haven't really talked about it too much, but here we go. So, just a lot of interruption, a lot of hiccups. I mean, I think that band could have made a lot of strides if people didn't take off and do other things.
Right.
That got in the way. And but hey, here we are. Got a great band, got great dudes. I've known Jeremy. Man, I've known Jeremy since like '97.
Okay.
Right at that time, so I've known him for a really, really long time. Super cool cat, and we just get along fantastic.
Sure.
And I have huge respect for him. He teaches guitar. Amazing musician. He can record and mix and play drum. He's a killer drummer. I mean, this guy is just all around badass. And
mm-hmm.
I feel like I've met my match. When it comes to musically, I feel like that guy's the guy, and it's easy when we get together and write music. And I think that's what shows too. There's not that struggle.
Right.
There's not that. You're working on a song for 3 months. We don't do that. We get together. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, we toss it and move on to the next thing.
Right.
But I see a good future in this band. I really do. We just flew to England, last Thursday. We're already back home. Came home Monday.
Wow.
Everybody's ready to go. Does it? We get along great. Everything's cool.
Very cool, man.
So I look forward to making a lot of records with these guys.
Excellent. Now I want to go back in time with you personally, and then bring it forward. I've been thinking about this for a little while. No secret, you came into my light and probably most people's light when you were in Systematic a million years ago.
Uh-huh.
And
a million years. Thanks for putting it that way.
Well, I'm not trying to say it was like 5 years ago. I mean, it was what, 20
no,
whatever.
It was a while back.
20 whatever years ago at this point. But that was a band that was clearly a band for that time period. It was I guess a nu metal band, or is in that sort of genre. And your voice fit that very well. And somewhere along the way, you transitioned from, your voice hasn't changed, but your style and your technique of singing has changed from that style to this more organic, more pure rock style. And I guess what I'm curious about is, was that an actual transition that you had to make, or were you just doing that back then for that project, or was it a change, or was it or was it just how you developed, I guess?
I think it's just growth, it's just growing as a musician. I can tell you straight up, I thought that first Systematic record I love that record.
Sure.
Somewhere in between it's raw to me. We got lumped into that nu metal thing, and I don't think we were a nu metal band, man. I mean, Zakk Wylde put it the best. He said that we were like Soundgarden on steroids, and I thought that was the hugest, flattering compliment. It's like,
sure.
Oh my God, love Chris Cornell. That was always my goal. That was the reason I started singing, was because of Chris. When I heard Louder Than Love and Ultra Mega OK, it was just like, oh wow, okay, this is amazing.
Sure.
This is incredible. So I think a lot of it is growth, and then we did Pleasure to Burn, and that record, to me, I mean, not to put any shame on it or anything, or any shade or anything, but that record was produced very different, and stylistically I just wasn't feeling it. That record was not my. If I direct people to any early Systematic or what we've done, it's always somewhere in between, because I felt that was the truest form of what that band really was.
Right.
And then it became a thing of numbers. It's like, well, hey, we only sold so many records. Maybe we need to be like this. And then it became that kind of mindfuck game. And I didn't want any part of that. It's like, no, let's just write our songs and be who the hell we are. And that's all it should be, right? It shouldn't be chasing anything. And I felt like some of that was going on at that time. And then we worked with Howard Benson on that record, and Howard's a radio guy.
Right.
Howard's a great producer, fantastic producer, but was he the right producer? I wanted Dave Jordan,
Okay.
So I wanted to do something dirty and heavy and go that route, and then we got this guy that's doing like Hoobastank and shit, So It's like you get thrown into that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the development from being done with that and moving on, I mean, my favorite singers are Paul Rodgers and Ronnie Van Zant and Bon Scott, and the list goes on, but they're all rock singers.
Sure.
So I just felt the truest form of who I am. That's the music I love, and that's not really chasing a style, but just being what that is. That's part of me. That's part of my musical DNA.
Sure.
And just letting that be what it is, and so I think that's what it is. I think that's the growth and the change. I'd like to get the whole Systematic mindset of like nu metal, get that out of the nu metal camp.
Right, sure.
Because we were definitely not one of those bands.
Right.
Not one of those bands.
And I honestly, dude, and obviously this is a hindsight thought. I didn't think it at the time, but I just thought that you were Systematic was labeled with everything they weren't. You guys were, I mean, because you were the first band on Lars's label, everybody's looking for a Metallica clone. You obviously weren't that. Then the first time anybody heard of you or saw you, for a lot of people, was the tour with Puddle of Mud and Edema. And you weren't those bands, you weren't like those bands either. So it was like this whole, okay, here's all these things surrounding the name of this band, and none of them fit, but everybody was putting you into those boxes instead of just actually saying, let me listen to this record and let me hear and see what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's exactly, you nailed it on the head. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, and working with Lars and all that was just amazing. And he got it. He heard what we were doing and thought it was different in what it was. And yeah, and maybe that's why that band didn't connect as much at that time, because people were looking for the next, bodies hit the floor. It's like, I don't write that shit. That's, I mean, no disrespect to Dave. Dave was a good friend of mine, but, you know what I'm saying? We were different than that. We were way deeper than that. We weren't that type of a band. But I get that, it's like, yeah, you're trying to market your band, and then they put you out there, and we were out at DEMA and played, I think Puddle of Mud was a one-off band on that, right?
They may have been. I don't remember. Yeah. I just remember that what I remember about that show when I first met you was that it was in the middle of the afternoon. And for the life of us, we couldn't figure out why we were doing, they asked us to host it, and we came out, my show, we came out and hosted it. It was at like 2:00 in the afternoon. It was like, what is this?
I remember we started drinking pretty early that day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was a good time. That was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, speaking of a lot of fun, you guys have been on the road a lot, having a lot of fun. You've played quite a few gigs now. What are you finding out on the road now with this band that maybe you didn't experience in past bands and past tours?
I think the thing I'm getting a real kick out of is how grassroots this band is. Working with Ripple Music, it's a very underground. It's people either like it or they don't.
Sure.
There's not. The marketing isn't like what we had with Systematic. The money's not. We don't have tour support.
Sure.
We got to put ourselves out there and do this thing. But what I'm finding is just the fan base that's growing it's real.
Sure.
There's no number fudging or any of that crap. It's like, these are real people. We had people come out, I said we just played over in Camden Town for Desert Fest in London, and we had some fans come out from Spain. We had people come out from France, and it was wild, man. And the crowd was savage. They were incredible.
Nice.
But it's all grassroots and real, and it's not. There's no forcing it. It's just it's a real thing.
Sure.
And that's what I'm getting the most out of this band. And yeah, just being able to travel. We're doing a lot of van travel, which is kind of tough, but you're on a bus, you're sleeping, you're in your bunk, you don't see a lot. We get to see a little bit more because we have to be up.
Right.
But no, I think more than anything, man, is just the realness. Just having that real core fan base build and just watching it happen and grow. It's great.
Now, one of the things as a fan that I know you guys do, not every show, but at a good amount of your shows, that to me, I think is A, ballsy, but B, very cool, is the fact that you guys will pop up a Facebook Live, and you'll just go live with the Facebook and let people see the band, because yours is the kind of a band, I think, that the records are cool, but it's got even more of a just driving flavor to it when you see it. And even over a shitty phone with shitty sound, you can really reach in and see the band, see what you guys do. And it's a good experience. Even on I've watched several of you guys' songs or pieces of shows on Facebook, which has been, for me as a fan, has been great since, you haven't played Ohio, but that's a whole nother thing.
We will. I promise. You know what, man? That I've got a good friend who's he's kind of a liaison in the business, and he's always poking at me, going, "Dude, go live," and it's like, okay, all right, okay. You're dealing with a million other things at a show, but
sure,
we try to make that happen as much as we can. And I think it's great too, because that's the most honest thing you can really do. Right. You're really throwing yourself out there. It's like, you fuck up, fuck up.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And a live situation isn't always band friendly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that shows true character in a band. I think that shows balls, and I think that that's what live music should be. You know, I think bands should go live as much as they can.
Right.
You know.
Well,
Yeah. So I'm glad you're digging it, man. I'm glad you're you know, seeing the video and checking it out. I'm glad it's connecting. Awesome.
It definitely is, man. And you know, that's the thing too in today's age is so many guys, and especially guys in more or less your bracket, your age bracket, I guess, that have been doing this for a while. Most of them ignore the technology. Most of them are like the ones that are complaining about their videos showing up on YouTube or whatnot. And I'll be honest, I hate that too when you play in front of 50 people and 48 of them have a phone up in the air. That does blow. But at the same time, if it's a new band like yours, you know, that's trying to build that audience and trying to reach people, and, you know, slowly but surely people have heard the name The Watchers, but they may not have heard the record, or they might have only heard one song or whatnot. You know, this is it is the way to reach people in today's world, and to ignore it would just be stupid on any band's part.
It is. I mean, and I laugh. I've got friends that are in bands, and they're like, "I'm jumping off of Facebook." It's like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it's there for. Use it. You know, I mean, it's different now. It's a different time. You know, videos are made. They don't cost $100,000 to make a video.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You can do, and you know, you look at what you get out of it. But you could do a Facebook post and reach, you know, go live and get 5,000 views off of that. I mean, that's incredible. You're reaching that many people. I mean, it's such a great tool. I agree with you. I mean, bands that shy away from that, I don't get it. You know? No,
I'm with you, man. Well, dude, the record is called Black Abyss. It's out everywhere. Anywhere that you listen to music, you can pretty much find it. Tim, where can people go online to keep up with the band or pick up the record and all that stuff?
They can go to Band of Watchers at Facebook.
Okay.
That's kind of where we do all of our business. We don't really mess around with the website. It's all Facebook driven. Again, it's Band of Watchers. You can find we have vinyl, our labels, you know, they really do a lot of specialty stuff with vinyl.
Sure. That's
kind of their niche. And, but it's, ripplemusic.bigcartel.com, and that's their store online.
All right.
You can find the album at Amazon. You can buy it, digitally download on iTunes. It's out there everywhere.
Excellent.
But yeah, check us out. And, you know, we're going to be also at the Maryland Doom Fest. That'll be our East Coast appearance so far this year.
Cool.
So we're doing that June 23rd at Cafe 611 over there in Frederick.
Okay.
So that'll be coming up, and there should be some music videos popping up here for some songs. And, yeah, just keep an eye out, and we'll be doing more touring and keep coming at you.
There we go. Well, dude, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the record, maybe tell us a story about it. So what do you want to wrap this one up with?
Oh, my goodness.
Hardest question.
A closing track. That is the hardest question. You know what? I'm trying to figure out what to do a video for, but I think last night after I smoked a big bowl, I come to the conclusion that I think we should probably do one for Seven to Net. So why don't we close with that track?
All right.
I think that's a heavy one right there.
All right.
And that would be my pick. And there you go.
All right. Well, let's check it out right now. This is brand new stuff from The Watchers right here on Your Classic Metal Show.